Finca La Vega is a small coffee farm located in the southwestern region of Antioquia department in Colombia. The farm belongs to my family. My father and my mom founded the farm in 1992. That was a year before I was born when they just got married. They started out with just a few trees and they have a total of 13,000 trees now. There is an annual production of 15,000 pounds per year, and the farm is located between 1,800 and 1,900 meters above sea level, which is a very good elevation for producing high quality coffee. And all of the coffee is 100% Arabica. The first step in coffee farming is selecting the seeds. Sometimes the farmers go and find a healthy and young tree where they can get good seeds from, and they pick out the cherries and then process and wash the seeds to be planted. Some other times they prefer to buy them from the National Federation of Coffee Growers because they test the seeds and they make sure they are going to be healthy. And sometimes also they have different varietals where to choose from, and the farmers sometimes want to change one varietal for another one, so it's better just to buy them and they will know that the seeds are going to be good and the coffees are going to be healthy. Next step is pre-germinate the seeds. At Finca La Vega, we do it with sand because the sand allows the water to go through easily. But before we put the seeds on the sand, we put very hot water on it to kill any bacteria or contaminant that is on it. The sprouts take about 2 months to come out, and after that, we will replant them in another place. After about 2 months from being planted, the seeds become sprouts of about 5 centimeters high, and they are transferred to individual bags filled with soil and organic compost so that each plant can develop individually. After being transplanted, the sprouts stay in the bags for about 4 more months until they become little trees and they develop individually. And there are always some extra trees because after you plant them in the open field, some of the trees die, so you want to have some extra ones in the bags just in case you want to do a replacement. Since the process takes very long, it has been already 6 months when the trees are ready to be replanted again from the bags to the field. You don't want to have to start the whole process all over again. So usually farmers plant about 500 trees more or 200 depending of the amount of trees that they are replanting. So that, if in case they need to replace any of them, they are going to be the same size of the ones they initially planted. At this point, the trees are ready to be planted in open soil and they have been taken care of and they have been watered carefully because they are very delicate. But after 6 months in total, they will be ready to be planted and live by themselves in the open soil. Before the trees are planted in the open space, my father takes a sample of soil of different parts of the farm and brings them to an agronomist who will determine if the soil is in a good condition or if the pH needs to be balanced. And then they take measurements to do that before the trees are planted. That way they avoid damage of the trees. My father makes it sure to plant each tree to a distance of about 1 to 2 meters because he wants each coffee tree to have enough sunlight and enough space to breathe. And after that, it will be about 2 to 3 years before he can get a first harvest out of that tree. So during that time, he has to be feeding the tree and taking care of the tree before he can even get one single coffee seed out of it. These are some coffee trees that are ready to be planted in the open soil, and they are located in the side of the house where my family lives and where I grew up. My father has a single farm, but he has it divided in 4 lots. He does that because each coffee tree needs to be renovated after 6 years, so he doesn't want to have to renovate the whole farm at once and then be 3 years without any income. So he has lots of about 3,000 or maybe a little more trees, and every year he renovates. Every year or every 2 years he renovates one lot. That way he has production from the rest of lots, and that one won't have any production for about 1 to 2 years, but he will have the others. And then after that one is producing, he will renovate another one, and so on. So that way he can keep a constant production level and don't be affected by the renovations. But that way he can also make sure that the trees stay young and within the ages they need to be. If they get too old, they get very tall and the production level starts to go down, and that is not good for the farm. Before there can be any coffee, there has to be the flowering stage. This one occurs about 8 months before each harvest, and that will be in March since the harvest starts in November or at the end of October. The flowering stage lasts for about 2 weeks, and all trees turn white. It is really beautiful and it smells delicious. It is just like snow, but with flowers. And the most flowers, well, the most coffee. So we always pray for having a lot of flowers. When the weather is bad, sometimes it destroys the flowers if it's too rainy or if it's too windy. And so we always hope to have a good flowering stage because that will make a lot of difference in the harvest. The coffee harvest for us goes from November to the beginning of March. During this time, we have a lot of people in the farm helping us picking the coffee. My father is also doing that, and if my brother is on vacation, he's also doing that. All the cherries don't ripen at the same time, so it is necessary for the workers to pass by one tree I mean, several times during the same harvest period. So each week you have to pass the same tree because the cherries that didn't ripen last week are ripened this week. So it's a lot of work. It's very intensive labor, and it's all day and part of the night working. It lasts about 4 months, and there is a little bit of coffee that is picked after March because there is still some coffee that hasn't ripened, and this is called the fly crop by some people. There is not much of that though, and sometimes during the year we also have a little bit of coffee, but it's not so much. So the main harvest is during November to March. At the end of the day, each worker brings the coffee that they have collected during the whole day, and they weigh the coffee, and then they get paid by the kilogram. Some workers pick even 200 kilograms of coffee per day, and it's cherry by cherry, so it's very impressive. It depends a lot if the harvest is good or not, if there is a lot of coffee, or if there is a lot of coffee that is ripe or not ripe, that they can collect the coffee. And when there is not much coffee, they don't get paid by the kilogram, but they get paid by the day. But if there is a lot of coffee, they prefer to get paid by the kilogram because they will make more money than getting paid by the day. Before pulping the coffee at the end of the day, my father checks the coffee and he removes everything that doesn't belong to it, like leaves or pieces of wood or anything the workers might have dropped on the container. And like, some of the cherries are not ripe enough or they are unripe, so he tries to remove all of those before he does anything else. This is how coffee cherries look like. They need to be completely red, so they're ripe and they're ready to be picked out of the tree. It is a fruit and it is very sweet when you taste it right after they're harvested. The red part, which is the pulp, gets thrown away or used for making organic compost, and the seed is what we actually drink or process as coffee. But after it's being pulped, it needs to go through a certain process because there is still food attached to the seed. It is very slippery and it's very difficult to take off and to wash off right after pulping. This is the pulper machine we use at the house to process the coffee. My father pulps coffee every day at the end of the day. The machine basically squeezes the seed out of the skin of the coffee and the pulp, and then the seed goes to one tank, and then the pulp goes to the other one and is processed to making compost, organic compost that then will be going back to the trees. But since the seed still has a lot of food attached to it and a lot of sugar and kind of a honey that is very sweet and slippery, it is very difficult to wash it. So what we do is we fermentate the coffee overnight, 12 to 15 hours, and then the sugars break out, and then the next day early you wash the coffee. You don't want to let it fermentate too long because it can spoil. So it needs to be the exact amount of time, right enough for washing the coffee, but not too much. So here is the fermentation tank. The coffee stays there overnight with some water, and after it gets fermented, then it's ready to wash. On the top right, we can see the coffee, the pulp or cascara as we call it, is being taken to a place where it will be fermented with other organic waste and then put back on the trees. The next day after the fermentation is completed, the coffee is washed with clean water. A lot of water is used in this process because it needs to be really, really clean, and we don't want any honey on the coffee that kind of spoil it. We have the source in the same mountain, so we have clean water and a lot of water, and we can do it. It is not very efficient because there is a lot of water used in the process, but that is how in Colombia, we've been doing it for many years, and we have the resource, so we can count on that, and that gives us really, really good coffee and clean cup. There is a lot of countries that don't have the same advantage, but luckily we do, and we are very thankful for it. But this is how it looks like. It's the coffee is moved back and forth for about an hour, 30 minutes until it's completely clean. And the bad coffees or the coffee that is not good quality is removed during this process as well. After the coffee is washed, then we put it in raised beds to be dry out. This process takes about 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how much sun do we have at the moment. It's very important to have a good amount of sun so the coffee can dry fast. And it is important also that the coffee gets moved around during the process, like every 2 hours or so, to allow it to dry easily and evenly. This is another kind of raised beds. They are much better because they protect the coffee against the rain. While in the other ones, the coffee is very exposed to the rain, and you've got to be there all the time. In case it rains, you close the ceiling and avoid the coffee from getting wet. But in these ones, the heat gets actually concentrated inside, and it dries the coffee faster. You also have to be moving the coffee around every 2 hours or so, but you don't have to be worried of being there all the time because it protects the coffee from the rain, and it is much more efficient and faster. And if there is not a lot of sun, it still gets warm inside, so it dries the coffee very well. This is a mechanic dryer machine. We use it sometimes when there is not enough sun to dry the coffee and we are afraid the coffee is gonna get bad or it's gonna spoil. We dry the coffee in this machine. We keep the heat very low, like the sun temperature or so, just to make sure the coffee doesn't dry too fast and the quality stays the same. Before we started selling our coffee directly to roasters in the US, we were selling to the National Federation of Coffee Growers in Colombia through the cooperatives. They have cooperatives all around the country, and we were selling to them at a market price, and then they will just take all the coffees and combine them and then sell them to exporters and then importers and distributors, and the chains get so long. And it was kind of sad because at the end nobody knows where the coffee comes from really. And so now we are really excited because we can sell our coffee directly to a roaster that will appreciate it and will appreciate the farm and the farmer and will be interested in knowing about us. So that makes us very proud and happy. This is my family. From the left is my mom, Estela, my dad, Jairo, my little brother Tomas, my big brother Herman, and myself, Jolima. We're a very united family. We love each other a lot. We're very supportive, and they have been very supportive with the business. And we're really, really happy to be doing this and to be working with coffee and keeping the business and growing it together. One of the things I love the most about the coffee farm is the landscapes. As you can see in the pictures, the sunsets are beautiful and the sunrises are beautiful as well. It is a little hard to get up the mountain, but once you're there, you realize that it's beautiful and totally worth it. I will be really happy to have everyone there visiting. My parents will be very happy too. The people in the mountain is really nice and they are really open to guests and they are happy to show people around. And well, I am just really thankful I had the opportunity to grow up in a place like that.